Okay, so like a lot of us, you may have forgotten, before the 60th, we're actually getting Chris Chibnall's last episode of Doctor Who as showrunner, the Centenary special, later this year. In this video, I'm going to go over everything we know about it, from the trailer, promo images, as well as some leaks, the release date, and more. So, like I just said, a lot of people have kind of forgot that the Centenary special is even happening in the first place, and a lot of people want to blame this on Russell T Davies, suggesting that the RTD2 era is overshadowing the current era of the show. But this really isn't Russell T Davies' fault, and what's happening now is no different to what's happened in the past when other Doctors have been announced. David Tennant and Catherine Tate's return was likely announced to avoid leaks, as the announcement was made a day before they were spotted on set, and the same can be said for Neil Patrick Harris's announcement. With Ncuti Gatwa's announcement, I believe this was mostly done just so people knew that when Tennant was announced, he wasn't going to be like our permanent 14th Doctor, it's just going to be for the specials. So I believe that announcement was just to make that clear. And so I believe the problem here is not all to do with Russell. The real problem is that there's not really been any decent marketing for the Centenary. And this has been an issue with the Chibnall era as a whole. The Chibnall era has always been so secretive, and the marketing has barely been there. If anything, Russell has been trying to keep quiet on his new era of the show to not overshadow the current era.
I can't say, honestly, it's that, because what is coming up in October this year is Jodie Whittaker's farewell, so I feel like I'm upstaging it slightly.
And has given us more information on the Centenary than Chibnall or anyone in the current era has so far, which I'll get into later. So far, the only official marketing for the Centenary we've got is a few stills, including Kate Stewart, Ace and Tegan, Yaz, the Master, Ashad, the Daleks, the Doctor in an orange spacesuit, and Dan in that very same spacesuit. And besides that, the only other official marketing we've got is the Next Time trailer that appeared at the end of Legend of the Sea Devils. Speaking of which, it's time for reaction. So for this section, I'm basically just going to go through the Next Time trailer we got at the end of Legend of the Sea Devils and just break it down.
Nothing is forever. No regeneration, no life. Beware of the forces that mass against you and their master.
This is the day you die.
So for this first section, we've just got that speech that I believe the Time entity from the end of Flux was given to the Doctor, which to me just seems like a worse version of that scene with the Ood at the end of Waters of Mars. And just to emphasize the point that she was obviously on about the Master, it ends with a shot of the Master speaking to the Doctor. But before that, we get a shot of the Daleks and Ashad from the Series 12 finale, accompanied by some Cybermen.
Ace, I haven't heard from the Doctor for nearly 4 decades.
Just because it's only 3 decades for me.
And obviously this is the point when we get Ace and Tegan in the trailer saying they haven't seen the Doctor in decades. With Tegan, she says 4 decades, Ace, she says 3 decades. I believe some people have pointed out that that doesn't really make sense with some of the expanded media, Big Finish, etc. stories that these two characters have appeared in. The average viewer isn't going to have listened to every Big Finish story or read every expanded media story. So for the average viewer, that kind of makes more sense to say that. We then get a shot of them in a room firing some guns, which I believe is meant to be the unit headquarters. I'm sure this is the same place we saw Kate Stewart in one of the promo images. Speaking of Kate Stewart, we see her being taken away by a couple of Cybermen in this shot. We also see Dan in the orange spacesuit in what looks like some kind of ship. The same suit and ship that we see him and the Doctor in those promo images. Here we see Vinder looking like he's just stepped out of the TARDIS. It's interesting to see that Vinder's returning in this. I wouldn't have expected him to have been in the Centenary, but he was a cool character even if he seemed to serve basically no purpose in the whole of Flux. I can't really tell what room he's meant to be in here. I don't think it's part of the unit headquarters. You can kind of see an old red velvet curtain behind him, so maybe this is in the past somewhere or in some fancy house or something like that. Here we see Yaz in the TARDIS pointing a gun. I've heard some people speculate that they think Yaz is pointing the gun at the Doctor at this point. A lot of people think that Yaz might be responsible for the Doctor having to regenerate, but you can actually see the Doctor in the background behind Yaz, so I'm not really sure what I think about that. Here we see what I believe is Ace in her classic Ace jacket, hitting a Dalek with her iconic baseball bat, and here we see another shot of the Master looking very different to how he looked in the previous shot we saw of him. He's got really long hair and a beard, and this has led some people to speculate, and I'm personally in this boat, that the Master we see earlier on in the trailer with no facial hair and shorter hair might actually be a version of Sacha Dhawan's Master before we see that incarnation of the Master for the first time in Spyfall. As I believe all the times we've seen Dhawan's Master before this point, he has at least some facial hair, but in that shot earlier on in the trailer, he actually doesn't have any facial hair at all. So I think it's quite possible that this could be a version of Dhawan's Master Master before the events of Spyfall, where he might actually be on the Doctor's side. Whether that's a version of the Master after Missy regenerated, or if this Master fits in somewhere else, I'm not entirely sure. And so that could also mean that something has made the Master turn against the Doctor again. And so this final shot, we see the Doctor appear to be regenerating in what looks like maybe some sort of prison, and you can hear her saying Yaz. Now this could obviously just be because she's about to regenerate and she's upset and Yaz is the person there, or this could back up the theory that Yaz is responsible for killing the Doctor basically. But a lot of people have also speculated that this isn't the actual regeneration, which could be backed up by that leak that suggests that 13 is going to regenerate on a cliff top. Some people suggest that this energy looks more like the energy that comes out of the fob watch in Fugitive of the Jadoon when the fugitive Doctor gets her memories back. So this could suggest that this isn't regeneration energy at all. It might be the Doctor opening the watch and getting her timeless child memories back. Although I personally think it could just be the new regeneration effects, because obviously the regeneration effect has changed a lot throughout the years. I know it's stayed pretty much the same throughout the revival, but especially when we're in a different era, it's a lot more likely that the effect itself is going to change because of different creatives working on the team. And it doesn't actually look that much different to the normal regeneration effect. You can actually see the energy coming out of her hands, and I think if you look at her eyes, you can also see her eyes are starting to glow as well. As well as this, Chibnall has basically said that the Timeless Child arc is not going to get wrapped up in this story, so that also makes it a lot less likely that this energy is coming from the fob watch with the Doctor getting her memories back. And that's it for the only trailer we have of the Centenary so far. Now, as well as that, we also know of some other returning actors that are coming back for this episode, those being Graham, although we don't believe Ryan is going to be making an appearance, as well as the fugitive Doctor, although Chibnall has basically confirmed that the Timeless Child arc won't be wrapped up in this episode, which is just really frustrating because it really shows that that arc was just pointless this whole time. In terms of what this story is going to be about, we really don't know a whole lot about the plot of the Centenary. A leak which I've discussed in my 60th anniversary video suggests that Jodie is going to regenerate on a cliff top at the end of this episode. Another alleged leak also suggests that the Doctor is going to be suffering from a disease called timefall, which makes them degenerate into their previous selves. Although I have also heard that this leak may be related more to the 60th than the Centenary. There's also been a number of potential titles for this episode, because obviously the title is not going to be Centenary Special, or you'd hope not anyway. One of those titles being Timefall, which relates to the leak I was just talking about, and the other being The Woman Who Fell to Time, which would be a nice reference to Jodie Whittaker's first full episode, The Woman Who Fell to Earth. Now, before I move on to the possible release dates and also the length of this episode, I first just want to quickly mention that we also know that this is Segun Akinola's last episode on Doctor Who. And for those of you who don't know, he is the composer who took over after Murray Gold, but he has confirmed on social media that this will be his last episode of Doctor Who. Now, as I alluded to earlier, Russell T Davies has actually given us a lot more information than Chris Chibnall and the current Doctor Who team have about the episode. At both the BAFTAs and when he appeared on The One Show, Russell T Davies mentioned that the episode is 90 minutes long.
It's a 90-minute epic. It's fantastic.
And it's going to be released in October.
Because what is coming up in October this year?
Which makes sense because the BBC Centenary is in October, and the Sunday closest to that date would be October 16th, which puts that as the most likely release date for this episode. So as far as I'm aware, that's all we know about the Centenary special so far. If you think I missed anything, please let me know in the comments. I probably have. And if you're interested in these kind of videos, I have a 20-minute long video where I go over every single detail we know about the 60th anniversary so far, and you can watch that right here.